Well, I am really excited to welcome Susan Rovner today to write for the role of the podcast. I've known Susan for a very long time. I experienced her first in meetings at Warner Brothers Television, where I was immediately impressed with her articulate authority and her calmness in these big meetings where everybody was talking so they could have their voices heard. And she seemed to be on point doing what she was supposed to be doing. But I didn't really know anything about her creativity. And then one day we were on an executive retreat. I don't know, was it Santa Barbara or I don't know where we were, Laguna, someplace, living the fancy life of television executives, playing games that are supposed to bond us. And at some point, I think it was Steve Perlman who said, let's go out onto the beach and light a bonfire. And some of us, maybe 12 or 15 of us, went out onto that beach that night. And I think it was Steve again who said, hey, what if we told a secret? And you piped up and you told a secret about your response to your parents' divorce. You went to visit your father and the new woman in his life. I'm also a child of divorce, and I went to visit my father with his new woman in his life. I was nowhere near as inventive as you were. You told the story of stealing one shoe. And I thought to myself, I love this woman. This
That's
is the
funny.
most creative rebellion any adolescent of divorce has ever thought of. And I just wanted to tell you how much I admire that
Oh.
and how much I knew then that you were a creative person. Do you remember that evening?
I totally, first of all, I love you so much for remembering that. I literally cannot. And I have to say, you painted the picture perfectly now. When I totally remember we went to the beach. I think we were like Laguna. I think it was like Laguna. And I'm just like, because my memory is terrible. I cannot believe that I'm just like, anyway, I'm blown away that you remember it. That is 100% true. I did think the most amazing way to torture her would be to just
Oh,
take one
so
shoe, just
I
one.
only went into a woman I would never even call my stepmother. I called her my father's second wife. I hated her guts. I went into her wallet and stole a $5 bill. I mean, how boring was I? She probably didn't even notice.
It's so
Right?
funny.
Did
It's
they
so
ever
funny.
confront you?
No, she never figured it out. She never figured it out. It was literally like anytime my mother figured it out because when I came home and in my suitcase there was just one shoe, and she'd be like, "What is one shoe?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's my stepmother's." I would call her my stepmonster. And I was my mom did not love her either, so she actually did think it was kind of funny as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my way to torture her. I just figured if it was just one shoe missing, it would confuse her and she wouldn't know that someone took it, and she would just be looking and looking and trying to find the shoe. That was,
Yeah,
was
I
what I
just think
did.
it's so fucking brilliant, and I think that we have to call this segment "What is the sound of one shoe missing?"
Exactly. I love it. I love it. I was so impressed with you, John, that you remembered. All true.
Oh,
Completely true.
it made an everlasting impression on me, Susan.
I love
I
it.
fall in love quite easily, but that was just spectacular for me. What do you think?
Good.
Recently I was in Washington, D.C., and I asked my older brother, what was the impact of our parents' divorce on you? And because it was huge for me. I was
Yeah.
14, he was 16. How old were you?
My parents got divorced. I was 10.
10. So
Yeah.
you were a shoe thief by 11.
By I'd say like 12, 13. I was like really into
Good.
yeah, to
Well,
buy
there's a
shoes.
relationship between shoe thievery and puberty, I would think so.
Exactly.
um,
Oh my
what do
God,
you
I'm
think
laughing so.
the impact of your parents' divorce had on you? You've had a long and, uh, uh, one marriage that's
Yes.
lasted a long time.
Almost 30 years.
How did
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I'm curious to also know about yours. How it affected you. I think for me, one, it made me pretty independent. I think there was a lot of like, oh, I have to take care of myself. And I think that it's interesting. I think like our generation because we were taking care of ourselves so early, I think a lot of things didn't scare me. um, because I was on my own a lot. And I sort of felt this like, hey, I can handle anything because I was handling things on my own so young. So there was that. And then there was honestly this incredible need to succeed. Like I didn't, and so much of my parents' divorce ended up being around money and my mother sort of being tied to my father because of money. And I never wanted that. I really wanted my
Yeah.
independence and I really wanted to know that I was successful on my own. And I was never tied to someone because of money, that I could like make my own decisions. And that really, really drove me to be successful. Like I really
Well,
wanted to be successful for
and
that.
God knows you did it. I mean, that was one of the things that was really clear about you from the beginning was that you have, without it being alienating or intimidating, you have this thing, I can take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that's a fantastic quality. Later on, I want to talk about this thing I learned from the research that Trudy did about you, the Tiara syndrome and women
Yeah.
in power, and how your generation of women, I think, I watched this a lot with. There was a group of women who first came into power and had to be more like men than the
Yes.
men
Yes.
ever were. And then there
Yes.
was another, maybe half a generation later, of women who said, I'm going to define my role in my terms, and I'm not going to lose my femininity or my
Yeah.
womanhood, but I am going to be powerful and independent and strong. And, nobody's going to take advantage of me or all of those kinds of things. Does that jibe with your
That
experience?
completely resonates 100%. I think, it's interesting because like you get asked like who were your mentors and who did you look up to? And I have to say, I think the generation of women above me had it, I had it hard, they had it harder. And, they had to make choices. It was career or family, it wasn't both, right? And
Right.
I knew from the beginning I wanted both. I wanted my family, I wanted a good marriage, and I wanted to be successful. And there wasn't a roadmap for women to figure that out. It was hard. There were so many obstacles. There were so many times that I was told my pregnancy was getting in the way when I was pregnant. And how do you calmly sort of say, you know what? My values are my values. I know what I'm capable of and push through it. It's something interesting what you said also, like in meetings, when you're right, we were in these lots of meetings at Warner's and everyone was talking and everyone wanted their voices to heard. And I think I really learned to listen first and then speak. Really like,
Mhm.
how do you listen first and not be too reactive and then speak and hold your truth and be a little bit more informed. And I think a lot of that was sort of looking at what kind of came before me and how was I going to break rules that were really
Yeah.
important to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, when I was evaluating actors all those years, one of the things that I was always looking for was who's a listener,
Yes.
who's a watcher,
Yep.
who doesn't subscribe to blah blah blah, my line, me, who's going to be a part of the solution and not the problem. and
Yep.
and that I think that's a crucial thing. It's interesting to me that you asked, my parents' divorce made me a caretaker because my
Yes.
mother my mother never recovered, and my brother went off to college, and she and I lived together in the family home for, I don't know, for almost 5 years probably, and she was a complete wreck. And my responsibility to be interested in other people, which I think maybe my empathetic qualities are the things that made me good at casting as well. So, there was a positive and a negative. I also shared your wish that I would have a long, happy, successful marriage. I made it to 19 years, almost 20. And then I also got divorced. And I hate change. And I really want to talk to you about change because
Yeah.
you've
I know.
managed to make changes in your
Yes.
professional life, and you've done them quite successfully to right to this day. But while I hate change, I also have to acknowledge that all of the changes that came as a result of my divorce were wonderful. I
Yeah.
got a second chance at love. I got a more direct relationship with my children that wasn't filtered through the problems of my marriage. And so it turned out to be a good thing in a weird way. And I was determined not to be devastated. How have you balanced stability versus risk in your professional life?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never been afraid of risk. Like, and I think a lot of it actually has to do with my childhood. Like, really, really has to do with my childhood. I think, I grew up in New York. I was alone a lot. When I think about the places that I went alone, if I would never let my kids go, right? And so I just always felt like I could survive whatever was handed to me. And so I always felt like change was just a necessity and part of things. And it wasn't until I got to Warner's that I actually ended up being stable. So every 2 years, I would quit the job I was at. I would always be like, I've got to move on. I've got to move forward. If I stay here, I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to be better. I'm not going to be successful. And it really honestly was not until that I got to Warner's where I was like, oh, I found something. I found something that embraces so much of who I am. And by the way, I look back on those days, John, and I'm sure you feel this way. Like, I didn't realize how good, great we had so much, like it was special. Like all of us, it was a special group of people. And I think I realize how much of that is true now, but I really was just like, okay, I get to be creative here. I get to work around people I really actually like. I get to actually make TV. I get to actually fight for the things that I believe in. And I think like a studio, what was great about a studio job for me was I love like fighting. If I believe in something creatively, I love the fight. I love the like, I'm going to show the world that this is a great TV show, and I'm going to do everything in my power to show the world this is a great TV show. So anyway, when I got to Warner's, I was sort of like, okay, this is it. I'm going to be here. And I never thought I was going to leave Warner's. I'll be honest with you. Once I ended up president and things were going well, I really thought I was there. I was lifer. Obviously, that changed when AT&T came in, and you could see the writing that it was no longer the Warners we loved, and it was going to be a very different place. And then I had to make a change again, and that was a big change for me when I went to NBC Universal. That was really scary.
I'm
Um,
sure, and
yeah,
because there was more authority and power in
yes,
some ways, I'm sure. Did
yeah.
it turn out to be what you thought it was going to be? Did you have a clear sense
I
of what
mean,
it was going to be? And were you right or were you wrong?
I think I've always known instinctually I'm more of a seller than a buyer. And obviously, I was chairman of entertainment content, and that meant really overseeing the creative of the platforms and the cable networks and NBC. And so it's a lot more of hard decisions, a lot more saying no to people, a lot more passing. And that's just like not really my personality. So I think I actually kind of knew going in that it would probably be a tougher position for me in that sense and not really completely align with my personality. Now, I will say I'm so happy I took the job. I have zero regrets. I
Uh-huh.
learned so much doing it. I have so much more insight into truthfully how the sausage gets made. I had one version of how the sausage gets made. This gave me an entirely new version. And just, it was like going to another school almost and just learning so much of how this big corporation works. I met incredible people that I would not have met had I stayed at Warner's. So it just sort of increased again my sort of circle of relationships and friends. But when I left, I was happy. It was time. I was ready.
Good.
And then though, it's interesting because I call this my chapter 3 right now that I'm in.
Yeah.
Now I'm making decisions totally based on me, which I've
Yeah.
never done before. And it's scary. It's different. It's really awesome. And I'm having like the greatest time, but every choice and every decision that I make in terms of a project that I take on or that I do, it's about me choosing to do this more than like, well, it's part of my job. Well,
Right.
I have to make this
You're
decision
not
because it's part of my
representing
job.
anybody but yourself and your
Yeah.
own point of view, and the title of this podcast is Right for the Role. It's also the title of the memoir that I wrote with the help of Trudy Roth, who's
Mm.
sitting in the other room. And of course it was a reference to actors wanting to get
Yeah.
hired, but it's also about a journey of self-discovery and finding out the roles that you're right for and gravitating towards those roles because you can be more successful in the roles that you're right for. It's
Yeah.
hard to be good at something you're not inclined to be good at.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that you recognized on some level that it wasn't your personality and that you prefer to be part of something that's passionate and saying yes rather
Yes.
than being in a position where you're mostly saying, you know,
No,
we had dinner on Wednesday night, but I really don't want your project. That must be hard as
exactly.
well.
It's hard
I
as
know that
hell.
for me that uh, when I said no to 95% of actors and yes or maybe to 5%, and that was always complicated.
Yeah, but you also, I will say, in watching you do that, and having a front row seat to that, you did it with great respect, right? And I think so
Oh
much
yeah.
of that is, it is a really hard thing to do because you care about someone, you know how important something is for them, and you also know why you have to make a hard decision, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, because obviously your taste in casting is so amazing and incredible. So I would assume, by the way, if someone gets passed on through your eyes are like, oh no, am I not good enough? Because John, because you're such a hit maker and tastemaker, but you always did it with class. You always did it in a way that was
Well, thank you.
respectful. I do think people in watching it, always wanted to come back, right? And always
Yeah.
like really
I've
respected
heard
you.
now over the years that that actors were always happy to get in my room.
Yeah.
I was kind of a monster to their agents and managers.
Well,
Um, but I do love actors, and I find what
yeah.
they are capable of to be so miraculous, and to have that seat 6 feet from them and watching them do their magic tricks. It was an astonishingly fun job. I
I also,
just spent the morning talking with
yeah,
Dana
sorry.
Delaney, who was sort of
Uh,
my very first triumph,
I
and
love that.
yeah, the people who had nice things to say when we put the book out. We asked if they would do, if some actors and writers and directors would do blurbs for us, and I said a few short sentences, and nobody quite understood that, and they they were
They were
verbose,
long.
but it was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
kind of wonderful. I still can't read the foreword to my book that John Wells wrote without
Oh,
choking up and such. So
so sweet.
thank you for that. I do
Yeah.
respect actors, and I
Yeah.
and I and I
Yeah.
I got great respect for the executives that I worked with, who also loved it. To me, that
Yeah.
I could always tell if you were in it for the love of it. And I was really fascinated to learn that you were a avid television watcher as a
Love to.
girl, but that you had no connection to television. There was no, you were a
Mm-mm.
math major when you got to college.
I was.
How did your
How did
interest in people
it
get nurtured and grow?
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because my journey is it's so crazy because literally, I grew up working since I was 15 years old, right? So I think that's also, by the way, why I'm a risk taker because I always paid my way. I always felt like I could always figure out to earn enough money to get by. So like even if I got fired, I always felt that I'd figure out some way to pay the bills, like somehow, some way. So this leads to how I got here. I graduated from college as a math major. I was going to like go work in sort of a more business, like I was going to like applying to the Federal Reserve Bank to like go be in that kind. They had a training program, and I was working at a clothing store at the time because I had to pay the bills, and I was doing that. And I just like had this like awakening of like, I don't think I'm supposed to be on Wall Street. Like this just doesn't feel right. And I'll be honest, I lied to the clothing store because they made me manager because it paid more. And I was like, absolutely, I'll commit a year to you. Absolutely, because I needed the money. And I like literally just stored away all that money. And I was like, I need to leave. And this was New York City. I need to leave New York City. I need to go somewhere different. And my father, that the step monster, loved Los Angeles. And they had a 2-bedroom apartment in LA that they were renting. And I saved enough money that I got on a plane and I was like, I'll go there. And I really did. All I knew was like, I'll go there. And truthfully, had that apartment been in Chicago, had that part like anywhere, I just wanted to leave New York. I just knew I had to figure something different out. And I went there. I saved enough money from that clothing store. And I had met one friend and just randomly, and she worked at Fox and she was an assistant there at Largo Entertainment at the time. And I didn't know anyone else. And so I would go there like every day and hang out with her. And her bosses got sort of annoyed of seeing me and they're like, we'll get you a job if you stop hanging out here. And I'm like, awesome. And that led to my first job at an agency. So it was like, and I really do believe growing up where I grew up in New York and the world that I grew up in, I just didn't know about this world. Had I known about this
Right.
world, I absolutely would have wanted it. I just didn't really know about it. And
But you got a happy accident, which is
yes,
one of, I mean, that's the story of lots of our
yeah,
journeys, and it certainly was for me. I directed a play in LA uh, early on, and I cast a young man in a role, and it happened that his boyfriend was the director of audience development at the Mark Taper Forum,
huh,
and he invited Gordon Davidson, who ran the music center in the Taper in those days, to come to see the play on opening night. And Gordon offered me a director's fellowship in the theater later that way. It was just a total.
yeah,
I never would have had access to Gordon Davidson.
it's
It
amazing.
was a happy accident, and those
Yeah,
are it's
yeah,
thrilling. And again, it goes back to the title of the podcast, which is you found the role that you were right for, and
absolutely.
it's a wonderful miracle. It's so
Yeah,
great, and you're not the only one who benefited.
yeah.
Your children benefited, your coworkers benefited,
Yeah. I wouldn't
the
met my
people who,
husband. That's I yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It all
exactly.
worked
How long
out
have you been
totally.
married?
We're coming on 29 years.
Wow.
I know. I know, it's crazy.
It's
It's
fabulous. And
crazy.
you have twins and
I
a
have twins and a third.
and
Yeah, so I got 3
and a
kids.
third. And your daughter, who's one of the twins, is a chef.
She is, and she's getting married this summer. I can't even
Oh,
believe it.
wow. Is she getting
Isn't
married
it
someplace
crazy?
exotic and wonderful?
She's getting married in London. She's marrying a Brit. He's a
Ah.
veterinarian, the chef and the vet in London. I feel like it's a Hallmark movie. I can always sell it. Yeah, I can't believe I'm gonna. Don't I look too young to be the mother of a bride?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I just turned into a grandfather for the first time. My 40-year-old daughter
Congrats!
has a 7-month-old daughter
Oh,
who I'm going to
oh.
see on Thursday.
I cannot. Can I just tell you how much I can't wait to be a grandma? That I'm so into that. I'm literally just like the idea of like just having the good stuff and then handing the baby
Yeah.
over. Just like
You know,
really want that.
where did your daughter get the love of cooking?
It's really interesting. I don't completely know. She always loved it. Now I do like Jewish holidays. I love cooking for Jewish holidays, but I don't cook. I would not say I'm a chef. She loves food. She always was cooking, like just playing with things in the kitchen all the time. And honestly, what happened was she graduated from college. She was a COVID kid, and so all the COVID kids lost. She was in college. She lost a year and a half of college. She didn't get to go abroad or anything. And when she graduated, me and my husband just like encouraged her to take some time off and do something. And so that led her to say, you know what, maybe I'll go to London and try cooking. And she did the Cordon Bleu summer program. And she didn't tell me at the time she had met the guy. She waited to tell us about that, but she met the guy and then she loved the program. And we encouraged her to actually go to the Cordon Bleu for school, and she did, and she found her passion. So it came after college, it was sort of, I think it goes to, we encouraged her to take a risk. I really think it's important that you take a risk and you try something. And especially, we know, like, when you're 21, you're young enough to fail. It's okay to fail. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, the world's ahead of you. It's going to be fine. And if you don't fail, it's going to be really amazing. You're going to find something you love. And so that's
Well,
really
again,
about that.
this is something that you embody, and I believe in
Yeah.
strongly, which is that no matter what you're doing, if you're on a journey of self-discovery and self-actualization, and if you're open to change and
Yeah.
growth, you're going to get better at whatever it is that you're
Absolutely.
working at. And that brings me to your recent production of the culinary competition with Padma. And I met Padma right after 9/11. She came in to have a general
Oh, wow.
meeting with me. There was nobody on the lot, and security at the lot had suddenly gotten very, and she said to me, the security guard had an inordinate fascination with my gym bag,
That's really funny.
which I took to mean that there was underwear in her gym bag. And um, I've been, in love with Padma for quite some
She's
time.
amazing.
She's really an extraordinary, charismatic, and exciting person. How has it been working with her?
It's been fantastic. I have to say, it's interesting because, so when I was at NBC Universal, my business partner was a woman named Frances Barrick, and Frances basically helped build Bravo, right? And Bravo, I have just such huge fandom, having way before I got to NBC Universal, but I also really wanted to be respectful of Frances and her relationship. So I didn't. I sort of tried to tread lightly on the Bravo stuff, because God knows I had enough on my plate with Peacock and NBC and everything else, and really kind of give her that space. So I didn't get to know Pama when I was at NBC Universal. And then after she left Top Chef and I left NBC Universal, her agent was like, "You should just meet her because I have a feeling you guys would be really good friends." And it was a breakfast that was supposed to be 45 minutes. It was like 3 hours later. And we like fell in love. And at the same time, Amy Reisenbach, who's president of CBS, who is my former assistant,
I remember her.
was, yeah, right. And she was wooing Pama to try to come to CBS. And we basically just all sort of like stars aligned, and we're like, you know what? Let's do a cooking show. Let's do it for Amy. Let's figure this out. And it's been such a great partnership because, look, I admit, other than my daughter is a chef, I don't know very much about the culinary world. I do know how to produce a show. That I know how to
Yeah.
do. And I do know how to make commercial television, and I understand all of that stuff. I understand how to deal with the network and marketing and all of that stuff. She is obviously the most beautiful woman in the entire world all the time. I just want to say that. She wakes up that pretty, and she knows everything about the culinary world, and she is brilliant, and she is so smart and so charismatic. And so I do have to say it was sort of a great partnership because we just really complement each other, and
Right.
she's just become a great friend. And she's just, I think people realize how brilliant she is, but she's really brilliant. She's really smart. She's
Yeah, it doesn't
so well
surprise me.
read.
I mean,
Yeah.
that early marriage of hers to Salman
Yeah.
Rushdie, I mean, that
Right.
speaks volumes about
Volumes.
what a young woman, how that
Yeah.
happened. I mean, you could attribute it to her beauty, but it probably had more to do with her mind uh,
Yes.
than her beauty.
Yeah.
Would you please be kind and tell her, see if she
I
remembers meeting me
will.
at
I
Warner Brothers?
absolutely. I
I
can't wait. I
think
will
it
tell
was
her later
on,
today.
I think it was on 9/13, right
That's
after
amazing.
9/11.
Wow. Wow.
We were
I
literally
so
the only two
remember.
people on the lot.
Yeah, I remember, by the way, it was so, can I just, this is a funny Steve Perlman story, sort of, but I had the twins. I was actually, my son, I was feeding my son when the second plane hit, and we were all watching on television.
Yeah.
And I remember Steve Perlman calling me and being like, "Are you coming in? Like, I think I'm gonna come in." And I'm like, "I'm not coming in." And I'm like, I think we're at war. It was very Steve. Are you
Yeah,
coming
it's
in? I'm
wacky.
like, "No."
I want to shift gears a little bit, Susan, and ask you, in the research, we heard you say that you come about your television as a fan.
Yes.
And I've been on notes calls with stubborn, mulish writers and directors who are muting the phone call and whispering naughty words. How did you approach writers and directors with notes from your fan point of view and your growing expertise? What was your approach with
Yeah.
these temperamental, selfish, noisy people that we all dealt with?
Yeah. I think, it was a learning process. So I want to say I look back and there were definitely mistakes I made early in my career. And what I started to realize is, and I say this a lot to people coming up, their success, those writers succeeding, is actually my success. So it is my job to help them be as successful as possible. And I think when writers understand that that's where you're coming from, I want them to be successful. I want the show to work. I need the show to work as much as they do. So my notes come from a place of love, come from a place of wanting them to be successful, and don't come from a place of change for change's sake, right? And I think, and I say this a lot again to like the younger generation, if a writer writes a show that's the color blue, it's your job to help them realize it as the prettiest blue it can be. Don't make it red. They didn't sell
No.
a red show, right? They sold the blue show. And that's your job, is to help them make that the best as it can be and help them be the best that they can be. And when you approach it that way, you end up getting a lot more trust, right? I'm not coming from a place of like, hey, I just prefer this. That doesn't matter. It's what they prefer that matters. But what I can say is, hey, I'm not connecting. I'm not emotionally invested in this person. This is a bit confusing. I don't know if this is really what you meant, and I think when you approach it that way and people trust you and they know that you really want what's best for them and you want their show to be a hit, it tends to help people listen to you more, and I
Yeah.
do think, unfortunately, a lot of executives put their ego before what's
Right.
best. And I really learned that that is the exact wrong way to do, because again, if the show works, I'm successful. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've tried to do in this last chapter of my life has been to try to communicate to actors that casting directors aren't the wall between you and the job. We actually want you to succeed, and we're
Yes.
trying to help you succeed. And I approached my uh, the way I handled auditions and actors with love and respect and positivity, and to try to give them information that would help them be right for the role.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people, writers and directors and actors, all appreciate that when they're open enough to see it, when they don't feel invaded or like they're being manipulated or told what to do. I hate being told what to do. It's part of why working in television now became less and less exciting to me, because
Yes.
I had the experience with a Fox casting executive when we were doing Krista Vernoff's pilot Studio City, where a
Yeah.
one-line EMT was not approved. And I was like, with all due respect, and I'm trying to control my emotions here, I have cast more one-line EMTs than everybody else on the planet Earth.
Anyone in the world. And
Yeah.
anyone in the world you cast more. There's no one holds a candle to
And
that
it
list.
just seems stupid
Yeah.
that the guy will be on camera for a tenth of how long it just took me to tell you this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And so
And also, by the way, let me tell you, if that person, let's say, isn't great, it's not going to affect whether people watch the show or not. It's not, you know what I mean? Like if that one
yeah,
line affects the ratings of the show had a different problem. But it's,
yeah, no
what
kidding.
happens, right? What happens is, look, I think especially at networks, I think people have no power besides the power of no. I say that a lot,
Right.
and they feel powerless except for the ability to say no to you, and then they can abuse it, and it's insane. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it stops the things from being fun, it slows things down.
Yeah. All
And
of that is,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's
And I
true.
agree, yeah, it's not as fun anymore. Mhm.
Yeah, early on in the days, passionate discussion was acceptable, and of course now in the modified behavior that we're all dealing with.
Yeah.
Passionate argument is not so
Yeah.
readily accepted. I
Well,
want to cover one
yeah.
more really
Well,
important.
can I say one thing though that you said? Can I just
Sure.
one thing, because I think this is something about you that I really admire, that I just really want to bring up, because I think and it all is of a theme here. You were always honest with actors. You were honest. And I think people don't forget how important honesty is. So like you can say this is why you didn't get the role. And when you're honest with someone, even if it hurts to rip the band-aid off, ultimately like you heal better, right? You understand and you trust more. And I think a lot of that ability to pick up the phone and call someone and like going to the notes process even and say, here's my honest opinion. I want to be honest with you
Yeah.
because I want you to be successful. I think that has gone away. I think people are so scared, be it
Yeah.
COVID or what happened, where like the communication stopped and people now just text or email or put something between that honest
Yeah.
conversation that allows people creatively to shine ultimately. Because you telling an actor, this is why you were wrong for the role. This is why we went with this other person. This is where I think, you would fit in. This is what I think for your next audition you need to focus on. Being able to hear that is going to make that person so much more successful in the future. And it really is the biggest gift you can give someone if they're open to taking it, right? Anyway, it was just as you were talking,
Amen.
I was like, yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
the truth. The thing that I want to get to is this new project you have going. What's it called?
Microdramas.
Microco.
Yes, it's Microco. So our parent company is called Microco. I can say the name. We're announcing the name of the platform, but I think by the time this is up, it's okay. It's called the platform's called A Twist, and it is a micro series app and studio. And I will say, when I left NBC Universal, I was obviously trying to figure out who was I? Who was I now? What was I going to be? What was this chapter 3? What were these choices? My kids are grown. My husband works. Who am I now? How do I define myself when my kids are grown ups, and like what am I? And I'm not the chairman of NBC Universal or the president of Warner Brothers Television. Who am I now? And one of my really dear friends is Jana Winograde, and she had most recently been president of Showtime, and we both were like in the same boat, like looking at each other, being like, "What should we do?" And we wanted to work together. And through a series of events, we found that really people call them micro dramas. I call them micro series, and I can explain why. But we found this new form of storytelling, and it reminded us both of why we started in the business. Janet and I started at ABC on the same day a long time ago, over 30 years ago. And it's like, why, when we were doing this, the fun that we used to have, the risk taking. And I think what has happened in the consolidation, everyone is so afraid to take a risk now because it means you get fired. If the risk doesn't work, it means you get fired. There's no permission to fail anymore, and it's all gone. But in this world, our budgets are $200,000. That's it for an entire series. The series, by the way, is only 90 minutes, so like it's sort of like a movie, but it's broken down into these small little episodes. But when you're not spending $100 million, you're spending $200,000. You can look at an idea and just say, you know what, I like this. Let's try. Who can we discover? And I think it's interesting. I think for actors, with the consolidation, if you dream of being an actor and you've gone to school to be an actor and you're graduating and you're 21, it's so hard these days because there's less getting made. The barriers to entry are so big, but you can take some of this in your own hands. And micro dramas, there's so many getting made. There's so many wonderful actors we're discovering who, can't get an audition in the more traditional space because of the consolidation. And it just reminds me of the fun times. It reminds me of when we had that retreat, like where everything felt possible. Like that's what, and so there's this sort of excitement around it that I haven't felt in so long, that gets me up in the day. That's just like, yeah, let's try this. Let's do this. Like someone really passionate brings me something and I'm like, you know what? Let's see. And it's great. It's like
Oh, that's
finally
fantastic.
exciting again.
I didn't invite you here today to ask you for a job, but That being said,
Come play. You're hired.
I would love to do some casting for you in that arena. That sounds like,
It's,
the
heaven,
whole thing
honestly.
of building community and collaboration and all of those things are so important to me, and
So,
they're
yeah.
so much a part of my roots that I, anytime, Susan,
You got it. You
any
know what? You know
time.
I love and adore you, and I know there's no one with better taste. So
Well,
you're
thank you for that.
sold. Sold. Be careful what you ask for, John.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I'm doing okay. Um,
Yes.
I made it actually. I wrote and directed a 7-minute short film this past year,
Oh my
which was
God.
the first time I ever did that, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm actually in the home of the man who played the lead, uh, because he has all this great technology for doing self tapes. Jonathan Medina is his name. You should look him up.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We're coming to the end of this wonderful conversation, Susan. It's such a great reunion to get to
I
see you,
know. It's
and yeah,
so nice to see you.
you don't look like you could possibly be the mother of the
Mother
bride.
of God. Thank you. I love you. Yeah, I love you even more now.
But my mom used to play this game with us when we were little kids. She would say to me, say 3 words to tell me who you are. And I had a strong sense of my own identity. I said, I'm Johnny, I'm me, and I'm a boy. Uh, would you play this game with us? 3
I
words to
will. Oh
describe
my
Susan
God.
Rovner.
Okay, there's this passionate, kind. I think I'm kind. I try to be kind. And caring. I've lately, I'm going to use the word caring. It's a big thing I say lately. I realize how many people don't care. And I constantly, my favorite people to be around are people who care. I just think caring is like the key.
Yeah, that's what passion, where it comes
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to see your face here and to hear your words, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you for
for joining
having
us.
me. This is so, and thank you for your memory. Oh my God, I love that you remember the first story.
And
So
by the
thank you.
way, I'm wearing one shoe.
I love it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.